Let's start thinking about storytelling as a form of hypnosis. We are trying to induce a mental state in our reader. Have you ever read a story or book that totally took over your mind, swept you away? You were completely taken into the story. You forgot about time. You forgot about your real life. You were just mesmerized by that story. We can look at this as the story being a successful inducer of a hypnotic state. So it isn't just about telling a good story, but finding a way of momentarily taking over your reader's mind, drawing them in, making them feel like they are living inside your story. One way we can do this is to understand that the human psychology has developed to operate in the real world. And in the real world, ourselves and the people in our lives become certain kinds of people to us and induce different types of psychology. So if you can become sensitive to this in storytelling and learn to use some of it yourself, you can use this to draw your reader in. The most well-known of these, of course, is the protagonist. The protagonist is basically the character that you want your reader to become. You want your reader to feel like they are experiencing the story through that character. And this, when it's done well, it takes the reader out of themselves. They momentarily forget themselves, and they become that character. And when this happens, they feel everything that happens in your story very strongly. You could have a great story where one of the characters dies, but if it isn't written well, the reader isn't going to feel it. But if it's written well in such a way that the reader is occupying that story, that the reader has become one of the characters in the story, they feel that death very strongly, as if it happened in their real life. I always take a moment to explain this. I am never giving the definitive in good storytelling. These are tools, and it isn't like you need to always use every single tool in order for it to be a good story. You don't always feel like every story you write has to have a protagonist. There are great stories out there that aren't even about characters, aren't even about living creatures. If one of your goals is to write a character that will hypnotize your reader, will draw your reader in, gently take your reader out of their own bodies and place them in the shoes of this character, then you can become creative and you can develop ways. And we can appreciate the ways it has been done. So often a very imaginative, fantastic, or super reality story starts out in the most ordinary of settings, and it starts out with very identifiable characters. And the reason is because the reader does not have to jump so far to get into the shoes of the protagonist. It's a much more feasible transition. Once the protagonist is securely in those shoes, then it can turn out that those shoes are rocket shoes that blast your reader off into an experience they've never had before. So when we talk about different kinds of characters in a story, we're talking about affecting the reader's psychology, kind of the psychology they come with. We're adapting the story to manipulate, basically, the reader into a hypnotic state that will make that story feel more real to them. So let's appreciate the role that the protagonist plays in our lives, our non-fiction lives. When we're going through our life, we are the protagonist. We are that's who we feel ourselves to be. And as a character type, it psychologically, it ourselves, our identity, this is a character, we put ourselves in the shoes of this character, our identity. And also, if we're talking with a friend about something they have been through, we momentarily step into their shoes, so they become the protagonist. In human psychology, we automatically assign to different people character types. We automatically assign to ourselves the protagonist character type, and we start utilizing ourselves in that way. So the second character type is the enemy. Now, this in real life, if you have an adversary, you start assigning to that person the character type of the enemy, and that brings into it all this psychology, the way that we view them, the way that we feel towards them, the way that our intentions change towards them, the way that we start acting and are motivated to react to them because we have applied to them that character type. And this is one of the, as far as storytellers hypnotizing their listeners, this is one of the most popular ways of doing so, is to play up to that character type, the enemy. And it's most noticeable when the enemy is very much the enemy. They're just bad news, bad intentions, up to no good, wanting to destroy, wanting to rob, wanting to do all terrible things that that any person ever born on the face of the earth would never want to become this character type. Humans are animals, and the same way, there are some very predictable things in our psychology. Humans have a tendency to be frightened of spiders, and this is an evolved psychology. And humans have evolved to begin to assign to people in their lives, to greater or lesser degree, the enemy character type. And this determines what sort of scenarios play out with these people in real life. And it's utilized to the greatest effect in fiction because you can really make the characters in your story the enemies. And so, to greater or lesser degree, you can have characters in a story where they're still very human. They're doing what they're doing because, kind of a cliche is because they had a bad upbringing. So, they're gonna rob the train because they were abused as children or something like that. But they're still, the reader automatically starts to assign to the characters in your story character types. And if you recognize this, then you can start to utilize it. I'm not saying that you're going to be a better storyteller if you make your characters more like the enemy character type. But while you're writing your characters, you can appreciate, you can learn to do subtle or less subtle things that will, when the reader is going to automatically assign a character type to the characters in your story. And if you do things to make them do that to the degree that you get them to do that is to the degree that you draw them into your story. You've written a story. Your reader is reading the story, and in it the protagonist is doing all the things that that the reader would want them to do, to face up to the great problem, to overcome their difficulties, to win the prize, to rescue their family, whatever they're trying to do. All the decisions they're making are the decisions that your reader, while they're reading it in their minds, they would be making and hoping that those decisions will work. So when you have a story where the reader has assigned, they have put themselves in the shoes of the one character, but then this character starts acting on their own. So when the character starts becoming their own person and making decisions that are not the ones the readers would make, this creates a very uneasy feeling, and it can be for great storytelling. That's one thing, but you have there's another character type, and this is where you have a character who's meant to be observed from a distance. And this is really noticeable when you have a character that is a train wreck waiting to happen. So you have a character who is messing up all over the place, races their car on the cliffside, and yes, the car went off the cliffside, and yes, they had a terrible wreck, and they're in a body cast, and they're the good friend of the protagonist, so the protagonist visits them in the hospital, and they try to reach for a book on their own instead of asking the protagonist to give it to them, and they fall off the bed and their body cast breaks. And what this is a character type where we are meant to appreciate the dramatic, the storytelling happenings that happen to this character in a different way than we are meant to appreciate the storytelling happenings that happen to the protagonist. Whatever the protagonist goes through, we feel as if we've done it or it has happened to ourselves. Whatever, I call it the train wreck character. Whatever the train wreck character goes through, we're meant to appreciate it as if it has happened to someone else. And it doesn't have to be a train wreck. It could be a very good thing. You could have a character, you could have the protagonist, struggling to make ends meet, while this train wreck character is someone who all the great things happen to, but we're still meant to appreciate it as if it's someone other than ourselves. So this character type is someone we know well. Okay, in our real lives, this is someone we know well, an acquaintance, someone we see around often. And the person type we assign to them is someone we enjoy watching whatever they're going through for the sheer pleasure of seeing how the realities of his existence play out without suffering any of the good or bad things that happen. That person is someone who goes down the street and goes to the dynamite store and buys dynamite and blows their arm off. We can appreciate the realities of existence without feeling that ourselves. So this character type is someone that we pay close attention to and are entertained by, that is, to an extent mesmerized by whatever is occurring to them. For the reader, this is a win situation. No matter what happens, good or bad, to this other character, we can learn from their successes and failures without any risk or suffering from ourselves. And this character type, we find them in our real lives, and we automatically, when this character type shows up in fiction, it draws us into that story. The more that we assign that character type to a character in a work of fiction, the more we are mesmerized by that story, the more that we are drawn in. Now, I'm talking about learning to manipulate your reader, and we're doing it for a good reason. We're doing it because this is a way of enhancing our story. You could take a mediocre story and still if you use it to manipulate your reader, they can still be enthralled by it and have a great ride. When we go to fiction with the same needs that we go out in this great world every day. And so when we go to fiction, there's another character type we assign to the characters in the story, and this is the character type, the one who gives us love, who cares for us, or nurtures us, or guides us. And in fiction, this could be like the best friend, or the humorous roommate who helps the protagonist along the way, or the guide in the wilderness who helps the protagonist find the hidden castle. We're human, social animals. We respond very strongly, very deeply, very full-heartedly to the character type nurturer, someone who is when this character is giving us some form of love, that could be admiration, that could be great friendship, that could be helping, camaraderie. If the protagonist is feeling down, it's like, helping them to feel better, sitting at the counter at the bar, just being friendly, saying, it isn't so bad, And let's not overlook the love interest. So in real life, when we're going around, as soon as we apply to someone we see the character type of the love interest, psychologically, we are like, all these psychological programs come on board and go into play, and all this mental activity wakes up and kicks into gear and goes online. The switches are thrown, the fuse boxes light up, the circuitry boards come to life, the eyes open wide, the thoughts start to race. We are working with a huge amount of power, thought provoked, mesmerized, hypnotized, on board, swept away. And that's why the love interest is a big part of storytelling, is that character type is one of the most powerful, guaranteed, proven to work way of taking your reader, grabbing them by the back of the neck, and pulling them into your story. For someone, all you need to do to get this effect is get the reader to assign the love interest character type to a character in your story. You don't need that love interest character to do any specific things. Next time you're reading stories, pay attention to what the love interests do. Sometimes the love interests don't even pay attention to the protagonist. Sometimes the love interest, it seems like they're going to end up, going through the motions of a romance, and then it doesn't happen. The important thing for what I'm discussing here is that your reader applies that character type to a character. So again, in real life, when we're in a real life situation, let's say that we're sitting in a reception room of an office writing out an application for a job, and the person sitting across from us just says things that are really funny and are making us laugh despite what is happening in our lives. The character type is the funny person, the entertaining, the interesting person, someone who, no matter what is happening in your story, this is someone who is just being interesting, kind of outside of what's happening in real life and despite what's happening in real life or in terms of fiction, outside of what is happening in the story. So it may seem like it would be distracting from a story to have a funny person goofing off or a real interesting person taking away from the focus of the story, but actually psychologically this makes the reader feel more grounded in that protagonist, because then they feel like they are that much more the protagonist, because that protagonist is doing what we do in real life, enjoying being entertained by someone who's being funny or interesting. Think about it. In real life, we have a great time when we meet someone who's funny or interesting or says something that has really gotten our attention and gets us to think. And so how great that is to go and go to that virtual world a fiction writer has created for us and enjoy that in those other shoes as that other person. Please understand what I am describing here. I am not describing different personality traits or different kinds of people. What I'm talking about is that every one of us assign to people in our lives, including ourselves, roles that those people will play in our lives. And this is such a strong psychological factor that it can really kick into gear a lot of the psychology in operation in readers when they read a story. In real life, rarely do you have a person besides yourself. Yourself is the only one who will completely become the shoes that you walk in, or what is thought of as the protagonist. In real life, there is no such thing as 100% enemy, because these other people are people and they are three-dimensional and have a lot more to them to how they happen to exist in your life and all the other roles. Psychologically, we assign roles to people in our life, and to the extent that they can live up to those roles, we will respond and treat them that way. A character is being friendly with and supportive of the protagonist. The reader will feel like they are being treated in a friendly way, and there will be genuine feelings evoked by that type of writing. Thank you for watching. If you like my videos and want to get me back, please hit the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, tell a friend, get the video link out there. You can tweet it, you can Google Plus it. Also, please take the time to go check out my illustrated story, Terrible Immunity. It is at solomation.com. I live to create this story. Putting it out there in episode form, illustrated, narrated. I'd greatly appreciate it if you took the time to check it out. Thanks again for watching. Remember, the robots are taking over. Humans need to become better at the things humans are really good at. So I hope you have a lot of creative ideas this week, and have a good day. Watch the spoon. You're getting sleepy. You are getting sleepier. You are getting very sleepy. You are getting very sleepy. Watch the spoon. You are getting sleepy. Who is that behind you? I'm kidding. I'm joking.